And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network dedicated to covering Indiana women's basketball. Today is their 111th episode, recorded on Sunday, March 3rd, 2024. I'm your host, Kathy Amos, and joined today with my co-host, Jeff Marlow. And this afternoon, we will be breaking down your number 14 or number 12 Indiana Hoosiers 54-71 win over the Maryland Terrapins, closing out their Big Ten regular season and their just a regular season games period for this year. And with that, they will finish with their regular season record of 24-4 overall and 15-3 in the Big Ten, meaning they have now secured with, and we'll talk more about this later, but with this win today, they have secured for sure the number 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament. So we'll get into that more later. But first, I'm going to go into our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And this maybe is cheating, but Jeff, I'm going to actually do a couple of them. So before the game even started today, I think one banner moment we unfortunately weren't able to see unless you were at the game in person was the senior night ceremonies. So we had 3 people going through senior night: Ariel Wisney, Mackenzie Holmes, and Sarah Scalia. All 3 went through senior night today. And in addition, Ariel Wisney sung the national anthem. So that was definitely a banner moment, I think, for this program, especially with Mackenzie and all of the records that she set for us over the last 5 years, and the wins and the joy that she's brought to the game has been probably a good banner moment for us. But in terms of the game, my banner moment in terms of gameplay came at 7:51 in the second quarter. And that's when Sydney Parrish actually scored her 1,000th career point for today. So, she went up and she got that bucket, and it put her into that 1,000 point club. And we already know that Sydney is coming back next year. And even with a few games left this year, she'll be continuing to grow that point total. So those are my 2 Hoosier Proud banner moments for today. And as always, our banner moments today are brought to you by Home Field Apparel, the presenting sponsor on the Back Home Network, which includes the Assembly Call and the Crimson Cast. And Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. So you're bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that loves great collegiate gear. And currently they have a 3rd month mania going on where you can get a lot of things throughout the day or throughout the month starting tomorrow. But I know some new things that I've seen that are on the list that I'll be looking at are some jerseys that I don't remember having jerseys before, and some shooting shirts. And I see they're going to be doing a bomber jacket restock. So if you don't have a bomber jacket yet, you might get another opportunity later this month. And not only do you get great quality apparel, you're supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School business. So go to homefieldapparel.com, and if it's your first time purchasing from Homefield, you can use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. Again, that promo code is HOME23 for 15% off. And the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, so before we jump into the details of the game, we do have a couple quick news headlines that we need to hit. And at the top of the list is one hopefully everyone has already seen, but just in case you haven't heard, we already talked that Sydney's coming back, but Chloe Moore McNeil has also said that she is coming back for her 5th year. So that is why she did not participate in Senior Day today. So that's great news for the program, and great news to have Chloe coming back next year for 1 more year. Mackenzie was named to the top 5 of the Lisa Leslie Award for this year, so we'll keep an eye on that. NCAA released its top 16 seeds. So for the Big Ten, we have 3 still in there. Ohio State was the number 2, Iowa was number 7, and Indiana came in at 14th. And if that was how the selection ended up coming out for us, then Indiana would be in the regional with Stanford, Texas, and North Carolina State. Right immediately before the Indiana game, if you haven't seen, Caitlin Clark and did end up passing Pete Maravich for an all-time scorer for Division I NCAA basketball. Navia Kaffi, who is a point guard from Missouri, and the number 1 ranked player in Missouri has verbally committed to Indiana yesterday. She will be joining us after she graduates in 2025. And the other great Hoosier headline for today is our attendance today. So the attendance came in at 12,402, which now takes our average over 10,000 for our home games this year, and probably will land us around 5th in the nation for this year. And not only that, I read that this is only the 3rd program to have ever averaged 10,000 in attendance for Big Ten women basketball ever. So it's kind of nice to join a very elite club. So thanks to all the fans that were in Bloomington and attended this game today. So really a great showing. I know there were people up in the balcony, so they filled the lower bowl and then part of the top. So great job from everyone there. But now let's go ahead and kick it over to Jeff and get Marlow's musings for today. Jeff, what's on your mind?
Well, first of all, a lot of stuff there in the news, Kathy. Obviously, great win today, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I think the big news yesterday that came out was that announcement by Nevaeh Caffey that she was verbally committing to IU, and this is a young woman playing at I believe it's Incarnate is the school. Maybe it's Incarnate Wood, but it's in St. Louis. I'm assuming Catholic school. They've won like 124 games in a row. So this is a young woman that's not used to losing, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that she's been involved in a program that's been very, very good. Everything we've seen so far about her online is that she is a very quick, very pesky defender and probably gives us that kind of point guard that we've been talking about over the last couple of years. Now she's still 2 years away. Obviously she's in a class of 25, so it won't be next year when she gets here. The other thing, I thought interesting from that seed reveal, and we talked a little bit about this on Thursday night when you were sick, and glad to see you feeling better, but Kathy, by the way.
Yes, me too.
That again, Stanford, I know blew us out there, but I'm not, again, you'd be the 4 seed against the 1 seed, but I'm not exactly sure that I wouldn't take my chances with Stanford again. I would, again, I think everybody's in the same boat. When you're not after the 1 seeds, you're 2, 3, or 4, you're trying to avoid South Carolina's regional. So if we're in there with Stanford or UCLA or whoever else it may be, I'll take that chance. Give me those odds. I like that. With that. So I thought that was some big news. And then of course, kudos to the fans, the Hoosier Nation, who has really rallied around this program over the last few years to be 5th in the nation in total attendance or average attendance for the season. I mean, Kathy, you and I have talked about this on here before. We can remember when there was hardly, the games might have a few hundred people, 1,000 people at a game, way before we started doing the work. But just that was where this program was 15, 20 years ago. And you look at where it is now, just kudos to the team, the players, the coaches, everybody that's involved with that, but the fans who have now embraced the team. And so kudos to everybody involved in that. As far as the game today, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later. But obviously in a game like this where you knew you couldn't get the 2 seed anymore, you were locked into the 3 seed, win or lose. You were on to get out of this game healthy, and the fourth quarter were not exactly making us all feel good about that. With that being said, but I thought the players really in the beginning of the game, beginning of the second half, really showed where they can be. I thought they looked in, especially at the start of the game and kind of the start of the third quarter. That's as locked in defensively as I've seen them in a while. And I thought that was, I just thought that was some good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, Jeff, why don't we just jump right into it, and we'll start off with our pivotal plays. So what kind of pivotal plays do you want to start us off with?
Well, I'm just going to kind of go back to what I just mentioned, that there were 2 or 3 different times throughout the game, Kathy. I lost track. I think it was 3 different times I counted, and could have been a 4th, where we had a 10-0 run. At least a 10-0 run or close to that, like a 10-2 run, an 11-2 run, a 9-2 run. But I think it was 3 times, I know I counted, if not a 4th, that were definitely over 10-0s, which sometimes you'll hear referred to as kind of a kill shot among coaches. But that, to me, those are pivotal, because back to what I was talking about, I thought the defense was really locked in. So I thought those were pivotal, that the defense seemed locked in, and we were and we had a really good idea of what we wanted the game plan to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I had written down one of my pivotal plays was already on the second defensive possession. We forced the shot clock violation. And to your point, we hold, Maryland to 54 points. And I know they're not necessarily the top scoring the team in the league, but they definitely average way more than 54 points. And defensively, I thought they looked really locked in. Some of the other pivotal plays, and I'm just going to kind of bunch a few of these together that I wrote down from both the first quarter and the second quarter. And it centered around Yarden. So, excuse me. So we had she had a couple of times where she kind of drove down and didn't force the shot, but she would get the ball over to Mac, and that happened a couple of times in both those first two quarters. In fact, she was the one who was the assist to Mackenzie for Mackenzie's first points of the game. And then she did that again in the second quarter. She had some really, I thought, pivotal 3-pointers as well. At one point in the second quarter, Maryland went into a 1-2-2 zone, and Yarden just shot right over it and made the score 16-33 at the time. And I thought a couple of those were really pivotal. She had some back-to-back threes. And overall, I thought Yarden, especially in those first two quarters in particular, just really stood out to me and was playing really aggressive and really both shooting and was sharing the ball. How about you, Jeff? What other pivotal plays you have, and maybe some thoughts on Yarden's play today?
No, I thought Yarden played well in spurts in the first half. Then she would have 2 or 3 turnovers, it seemed like. So,
exactly.
You look at it, she finished with 5. And so it seemed like they came in spurts too. I'm going to go also here, Sarah Scalia in this part, in that first half where she kind of scored in bunches. And she had a really nice play right there that kind of in that first quarter where she kind of finished it off. If I remember correctly, she a little crossover move to a layup and drew a foul to get the and one to make it 13-2. And then at the end of the second quarter, she hit back-to-back threes that stretched the lead out from 33-18 to 39-18. So stretches like that. I thought the kids sometimes offensively, and we'll talk about this when we get to the numbers, I'm sure. It was not the normal shooting day for the Hoosiers, but I thought there were times when they were really, really locked in. Now, Maryland was physical. All right. And that's the other thing maybe it was pivotal here is I thought that the players did a really good job of not getting what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't take the bait. I think Maryland was trying to see if they could get them to get, out of sorts or to maybe take the bait and push off, shove somebody after a play and maybe draw a cheap foul, cheap tech, something like that. And I thought the players did a really good job of not taking bait, but it was a physical game. And so those kind of spurts become really big in a game that's kind of sometimes a grind and physical.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought Sarah in particular did a nice job on both ends of the floor. And one of my pivotal plays I also had written down from the first quarter is at that 6-minute mark where she stole the ball and then drove it to the other end for a 2-and-1 make or a 2-and-1 opportunity. And she makes her free throw, and that put us for the first time up double digits at 2-13. Yeah. And then she had those back-to-back threes, and then she comes out in the third quarter and Sarah hit another 3 over the zone, making it 29-44. So I agree. I had Sarah Scalia written down for a number of pivotal plays. And then my last one on the defensive side that I really wrote down was late in the first quarter where Chloe Moore-Meal just kind of seems to run out of wherever she was and blocking that 3-pointer nice and clean. There was no foul, and she just swatted that ball right out of bounds. And I thought Chloe was really flying around on defense today too, from a defensive perspective. So what other kind of what other pivotal plays, Jeff, you got?
I again thought the kids played very well in the third quarter. You look at the numbers here in the third quarter, it ends up being about a 16-15 quarter. But at one point we had pushed that lead out to around 19. I think it was 49-30, 50-31, something like that. Yeah, it's 50-31. That's what it was, 50-31. And so again, playing well in spurts, but I'm going to go to this. And again, let's talk a little bit about this, but the pivotal play here in the third quarter is Mac going down. I mean, and going down may not be the way to say it, but obviously she rolled an ankle or injured a lower leg somewhere in there where she had to kind of hobble off to the floor, went pretty much immediately to the locker room. And we didn't see her for the rest of the game, at least in the game. She finally came back out on the bench, toward the end of the fourth quarter. But obviously that's a pivotal play going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And then, you had another one in the fourth quarter. I didn't get the exact time, but part of the way into the fourth quarter after McKenzie, never came back, as you mentioned. Now Lily goes down with an apparent, it looks to be maybe an ankle injury that Lily had. Now she didn't go back to the locker room, but she did end up icing it the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And, as we know with ankle injuries, it could be, she could be back Friday, or she could be potentially done if it's a high ankle sprain. We just don't know. And that's definitely going to be a wait and see, I think, on both Lily and Max. So hopefully it's not on the pessimistic side. Mackenzie giving us hope, I think, in particular, because she came out of the locker room, didn't look too bad that she was limping at all. And she looked pretty happy, and she wasn't in tears anymore, and came out and sat on the bench for the rest of that time, and then did the post game festivities with the team. So, I think those were very pivotal. I think not really in this game per se, because at that point we felt like we pretty had it, but it's pivotal to our postseason play now as we, get ready going into the Big Ten tournament coming up this week.
Yeah, let's stay with that though, Kathy, because I think Jenny brings up a great question in the Workaholic that I actually was going to, and that is, if Lily is out and Mac can play, who's the backup? Well, it didn't look like it was going to be Ariel Wisney today, because we could have put her in. It could have put her in when Lily went out, and we didn't. I was, it's just scary to reply in the Workaholic, Jenny, that I think you go small. And you probably play Yarden in the post as best you can. And then I think you also saw, from the standpoint when that happened, we saw IU go zone. And that was probably as many possessions of zone as we've seen out of Terry Morin's crew in a long time.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that gives you a little hint.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, Jeff. I was taking note of that. And, when Lily went out, it seemed that Yarden kind of moved over into that fifth spot, and we had heard already in the preseason about Coach Morin saying they really, wanted to get a lot of muscle on Yarden this year, because they were going to post her up more. So that may be what we end up doing. If, it sounds like Sarah said in her Peacock interview that Mac told her she was okay. So, well, we'll take that for what it's worth. Exactly, Todd, for that information. Appreciate it. So we'll take that for what it's worth, but let's go with the optimistic on Mac. And then the big question will be Lily. And I think you're right. I think then you probably are using Yarden and Sydney more in those kind of roles than I think we would have seen them in typically.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too, Kathy. You bring up a great point about Mac, and she is good. Maybe it's just a scare, because just a young woman, a player who the last couple seasons has really, it just has really seen that knee be bulky at the end of the year. You go back to 2 years ago, it was more middle of the season, but then last year it was at the Big Ten tournament. We were going along, we thought pretty nicely, and then she kind of, gets banged up in that, re-aggravates it, whatever you want to say, in the Michigan State game that we eventually end up pulling out, but she was nowhere near 100% the rest of the way. So let's assume Mac's all right. And she just, it spooked her. It scared her, because, sometimes that happens. You get, when you've been through an injury and you kind of feel that same tweak, your first instinct is, oh man, so let's say Mac's fine. There won't be any, lingering issue. But again, I think Lily, and again, we've talked about Lily quite a bit on this show over the last year and a half, some of the good things she's done and some of the things she's got to improve on, but not having Lily to come in as a backup, I think, makes them have to go smaller, and it makes it even more important that Mac stays out of foul trouble.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So that's definitely going to be our big question that we'll need answered on our Friday game that we have in the Big Ten tournament, is like, how is our post play? How are our players? Are they healthy? Are they playing partially injured, or are they just not even able to go at all? I think there's a lot of different scenarios that we'll be watching for in that game on Friday. Any other pivotal plays, Jeff, that you had written down? We didn't really talk much about this third and fourth quarter in terms of specific plays, but I didn't really write a whole lot down at that point. It seemed
because we were all scared.
Yes, I know. We were all worried about McKenzie and then Lily going down. I don't think at that point it felt like, for me, especially like you mentioned, the third quarter, even though we only outscored them by 1 point in each of those 2 quarters, it just felt like we had it fairly well in hand, especially by halftime when we're up already 15 points. And we just kind of maintained right around that area. We might have gotten close to 20, but, it just seemed like we were weren't ever in any big trouble of Maryland making a
No,
big push for us. So I just don't think there were any major pivotal plays for me anyway in those 2 quarters.
I agree with you.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move to notable numbers. We already mentioned one notable number in our headlines, which was the attendance today. But let's talk about some team statistics in particular. Jeff, where would you like to start?
Well, I'm going to kind of put 2 together here, Kathy, into one, since you did that at the banner moment. Maryland, and this is the first time in a while that we've talked about this. Maryland, 16 offensive rebounds. 16 offensive rebounds. Indiana was -3 on the glass total. So not bad from that standpoint, but we gave up 16 offensive rebounds to Maryland. And that, I think, helped to lead to a 28-28 tie in the paint. And Maryland outscored us on second chance points 12-5. But that's a concern on that 12 on those 16 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we end up winning the total rebound situation here. Actually, no, we didn't. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong line. So yeah, we were down by 3, but those, again, and today it didn't hurt us, but we've talked about this on and off throughout the year, and it seemed we had gotten better. And it seemed to me we kind of regressed a bit today on the defensive boards. And like you mentioned, 16, and that allowed those Terrapins to score 12 second chance points. The other number that I found interesting was our shooting percentage today. And this was, you know, part of, I think, why maybe we didn't have as many rebounds. To be honest, we didn't really have as many opportunities to get offensive rebounds ourselves, to be fair. We did end up shooting 44%, but in the first half, we were shooting 54%. And that just doesn't leave a lot of misses for you to clean up off of the board. So I think that's part of it. But I also think there were a couple of times when we were on defense, we weren't quite as aggressive as we had been in previous games off of the board. So to continue the shooting, the other cool thing for us was we held Maryland only 3 3-pointers and shooting 19%. It's 3 of 16 for them, where we shot 8 of 24 from 3-point land, which was 33%. And at halftime, we were shooting 47%. We had 7 3-pointers. So interesting, we only made 1 3-pointer in that second half. And I thought that was interesting because it seemed like in the first half, you know, I know we were talking in the Discord with others about it didn't feel like we were really pushing the ball down low. We were shooting a ton of threes. And then in the second half, it seemed like they kind of came out and corrected that and weren't putting up quite as many. So only making 1 in that second half.
Yeah, I'll go with that. And, you know, that 1 for 9 in the second half. I thought the first half, it was kind of interesting because early on, they didn't get it to Mac. And then they finally, they went to her 2 or 3 times in a row. And then they went back to shooting some threes. Then they go to her 2 or 3 times in a row. With that, I'm going to also go to another positive stat here, Kathy. 85% of the free throw line, 17 for 20. All right. And so for a team that, again, remember at Christmas time, we were talking about how this team was not very good at the free throw line. And here they are starting to move up the conference rankings and shooting 85%. And I want to save some of the individuals here. So for when we get to game ball and the hustle war, so I won't get into their numbers, but again, when that's not a liability, when that's not a concern as much anymore, then your game, it gets easier to close out. And that's something we saw in we were talking about the Discord a little bit. And somebody's like, well, luckily that somebody made the comment in the Discord, at least this was kind of in the book. And I'm kind of like, I'm not quite sure I'm willing to say it's in the book yet, because it was only about a 12 or 13 point game, and Maryland and we didn't. And that was after I think Lily went out, and I was kind of thinking we're all kind of looking around like that deer in the headlight look. You know, that's what I saw a little bit. Now, again, I'm going to come back to the person who kind of righted that when we get to the awards, but there was kind of that deer in the headlight look of like, who else is going to get hurt? What's kind of going on here? And so, but yeah, when you make free throws, you can withstand a little bit of a run.
That's right. Yeah. And you know, it wasn't like we got that 85% on just shooting like 5 or 6 free throws. We shot 20 and we made 17 of them with a number of people shooting perfect from the line today. So I thought that was a really great statistic as well.
18 in the second half.
We shot 18 in the second half. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even write down the first half. So that's not surprising, because it felt like we didn't have very many whistles in the first half, and it seemed like they picked up in the second half. In fact, there were 2 players that fouled out completely and 3 more with 4 fouls between us and Maryland. So all of a sudden I felt like the whistles kind of ramped up in that second half. So the other number I was going to kind of mention is the turnover. So we forced 13 turnovers for Maryland, but we committed 14 ourselves. And the interesting thing was, though, we held only 11 points for Maryland off of those turnovers versus 16 for us. So at least it didn't, again, hurt us. But and that number is really not awful, but it's more than what Coach Moore really wants the team to have, which, she always says their target is around that, 11, 12 mark. So again, just a little bit higher this year on turnovers. The unfortunate thing for me was of those 14, 5 of them came from Yarden. And so I would really like to see if, we can get that cleaned up a little bit here and focus on that for the next few days going into Big Ten play. So, they'll have almost a full week where they can work on some of that kind of stuff. Any other numbers that jump out to you, Jeff?
No, Kathy, not in the macro.
Yeah. No, I don't think so either. Bench points, we didn't get much from our bench, 4 for us and 4 for Maryland. Fast break points was nice at 18 to 7 for them. We did have 5 blocks, which was good. But yeah, nothing else really, I think, really of note. I guess we should mention we did have 14 assists today for our 23 made field goals. So just again, a nice ratio, I think, for the team. Well, Jeff, with that, why don't we go ahead and move into our award segment, and we'll start with the game ball. And since I'm hosting, that means you get to pick. So it'll be interesting for me who we go with in this way, because I think there's a couple potentially different ways you might be leaning. So what is on your mind for game ball? Oh, before you vote, let's talk about who's won it first. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see at the bottom of the screen, we got the scroll going here. So Mackenzie Holmes, of course, leads the way with 13. Sarah Scalia is next with 5. Sydney Parrish, Yarden Garzone, and Chloe Moore McNeil each have 3. Okay, now, what is your vote?
Yeah, I'm going to go with, let's first of all, there were a couple people here. I think you come back to Sarah and you come back to Yarden here. I think those are the two, to me, they're kind of obvious. But I'm going to go with Sarah Scalia here. The 19 points on 6 of 13 shooting, just slightly more efficient than Yarden was. Both of them were 4 for 8. Sarah was 3 for 3 at the line. She had 8 rebounds, an assist, and a steal, and only had 1 turnover. So I'm going to go with Sarah Scalia on the game ball here.
Yeah, I was debating exactly, Jeff, between the same two that you're talking about. Sarah and Yarden led the way with scoring, 19 for Sarah, 17 for Yarden. But as you mentioned, Sarah was just a little bit more efficient, although they both shot exactly 4 of 8 from three-point land. So they were the two that made our 8 3-pointers. The thing I really liked about Yarden today, too, is I felt like she was really aggressive, right? And she seemed to, again, with those assists, a couple of assists she had to Mac. The problem for me with Yarden is, again, with the fouling and with the turnovers that we already mentioned. And so that's how I kind of got myself to the same place with you with Sarah. She ended up with 19 points. Although I would say after, about halfway through the third, it felt like she kind of backed off of some of her aggressiveness, but she still ended up, playing 37 minutes for the team, leading the team there as well. So for me, Sarah gets the game ball as well. All right. Let's see. Next, we will have the Grace Berger Hardest Worker Award, and we'll get through all of these names, which is a really great problem to have, having to read so many names because we've had so many different winners. So Lexi Bargesser and Sydney Parrish are both tied for the most with 6 each. Mackenzie Holmes is right behind them with 5. Chloe Moore McNeil with 4. Sarah Scalia, Lene Beaumont each have 2, and then Lily Meister and Yarden both have 1. So, Jeff, who gets your Grace Berger Hardest Worker Award today?
Well, again, I think you could talk a little bit about Yarden here as well. I think you could talk about Sydney Parrish. Sydney with 10 points, 6 rebounds, and a steal. But Sydney also, as you mentioned, about fouls, had 4 fouls. She had 3 turnovers. I think we could throw Mackenzie in here a little bit as well. 11 points on 5 of 5 shooting, 1 of 1 at the line. She didn't miss it all today. 6 rebounds. So she could have played the last, 10, 12, 13 minutes or whatever it turned out. But I'm going to go with Chloe here, and I'll tell you why in a second. Chloe did not have a great day. She was 1 for 7 from the field, 0 of 4 from beyond the arc, but she was 8 of 8 at the line. And that's the reason for me, because she was the one, if you watch, you kind of go back, and if you get a chance to watch it again, when we had that little bit of struggle after Lily went out, we kind of had that deer in the headlight look. Chloe made a drive to the basket, was really strong with it, got fouled. And I couldn't quite see what she said. I'm not a great lip reader, but you could tell she looked over at the bench and she said something. And it was, and my gut tells me it was probably something along the line of, I got this, or I'm, we're fine. There was just an attitude there that you could tell coming from Chloe that I really liked. Then you also throw in the fact that Chloe had six rebounds and 8 assists to go along with a block and a steal. So I went with Chloe Moore McNeil for the hardest worker award.
Yeah, again, Jeff, I ended up kind of in the same place you were. I thought about Yarden for a little bit. I thought Sydney really played well today as well in terms of, doing what we needed. She was one of 5 players that had double-digit scoring today for us as well. But to me, I ended up landing on the exact same place you did. Part of it was the free throws, but the other 8 that Chloe had in her stat line was the assists. And that's, for me, was what really put it over the top. Again, like she had 4 fouls, which was very unusual for her as well. But overall, I thought she looked like she was definitely the floor general today. It definitely made us exactly why everyone's so giddy about her coming back again. I thought overall her play was actually pretty good. And defensively, as I mentioned in our pivotal plays with that block, and she had other defensive moves today too. Again, the commentator said, hey, Chloe Moore McNeil is one of the best defensive players in the league. And I absolutely agree with that. And I thought she showed us that today. So for me, she ended up getting my vote as well. So with that, that will give Chloe her 5th hardest worker of the award today. So, and how is that for Sarah? I think that gives her 6 game balls for Sarah today or this year as well. So real quick, we will go through our kind of record watch, if you will. We renamed it from it was just the Mac watch, but now we've included now Sarah in this as well. And so we'll just give a quick update today for where we're at with all of those. So today, again, Mackenzie ended up with 11 points, 5 field goals, 6 rebounds, and 1 block. So she is now up to 2,476 points scoring. We already talked last time that she is ahead of Steve Alford. She's now ahead of him by 38 points. She is behind Calvert Chaney now by 137 to tie him. So if she's able to average around 21 points per game, that will put her, she would need roughly around 7 games to be able to catch Calvert. So it might be a bridge too far, but you never know, depending on how far we go in the tournament and how she does. And then the other person that we've been following now is Sarah Scalia, where she is working on getting Steve Alford's season made of 3-pointers. So she is up to 91 now, 3-pointers on the year. So she is only 16 points behind Steve Alford to catch him. He has 107, so 16 to tie him, I guess. So that's where we're at with Sarah. And then another interesting one we'll have to dig into, Jeff, is someone mentioned to me in the Discord that if Mackenzie averages somewhere around in that 21 points per game or so, I think that she would be able to potentially catch Tyra Buss for the all-time points per game in her career as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on that too and see where she ends up at the end of the year.
That took a huge hit today, though.
It sure did, with only 11 points. So hopefully that's the only huge hit we need to worry about with Mackenzie, and that we'll see her back on Friday.
Also, again, something I've included in here, Kathy, if you didn't see it, Sarah Scalia with her 19 points today now has 1,916 career points. She needs 84 more for 2,000.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that as well. And we already mentioned Sydney surpassed 1,000. So next year, I'm sure we'll start looking at how Sydney's doing, moving up in anything. Okay, well, Jeff, with that, I think we're through most of the stuff for this game, but do you have any other final thoughts on the game itself before we kind of talk about what's coming up next?
No, not really. I mean, we've really hit the game today.
That's right. I agree. So again, Indiana wins 54-71 today over Maryland. So with that, our upcoming game, which we've already been kind of alluding to, is the Big Ten tournament. We have now safely secured the number 3 seed in the Big Ten. And so we will be having the very last game of Friday night, which will take place around 25 minutes after the 6:30 Eastern game or 5:30 Central game ends. So if you assume 2 hours, that would mean we would roughly tip off around 9 Eastern or 8 Central. Who we're playing, of course, we obviously don't know yet, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit around the Big Ten. There are still games going on right now and later today that will impact the lower kind of levels of seeding in the Big Ten. And so if it ended though right now and nothing changed in the standings, we would be playing the winner of Penn State. And Penn State would be playing either Rutgers or Purdue. But again, Purdue's got a game later tonight, and if they win, that would move them up into that first bye of the Wednesday, I believe. So that's definitely up in the air yet with a few games still going on. So real quick, I thought we could talk about where we ended up with her hoop stats, Jeff. And then if you want to just run through that real quick, and then we can go ahead and talk about what's going on around the Big Ten and a little more about the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this does not include today's games, but coming in today on the her hoop stats, Indiana's was 9th in the hoop stats rating, 7th in offensive efficiency, 135th in defensive efficiency, 2nd in the country in effective field goal percentage at 59%, 2nd in points per possession at 1.02. 57th in rebound rate, which probably won't take a huge hit today, even though they were -3, and 14th in assists per game. So you can see why Indiana's gotten to where they are record-wise, because they shoot the ball well, and they're not great defensively. I'm not going to say they're elite defensively, but they're way above average, and so they're able to battle. And today was a great point. As Kathy said earlier, we only shot 44%, but we won by 17 because we were able to hold Maryland to 28%.
That's right. Absolutely. So, well, Jeff, let's get into a little bit more about what's kind of happened around the Big Ten. So today was the big day. I think there were some other games throughout the week, but today was really the big day where everyone was kind of finalizing their last games for the year. So there were a lot of games going on today. So earlier in the day, that did have an impact on us. Ohio State went to Iowa and lost there 83-93. So that secured this number 2 spot for Iowa and kept us on the number 3 line. Minnesota went up to Penn State, and Penn State just handled them 90-34. We have Nebraska and Illinois playing right now. Unless that game is over, I'll check.
That's a 1 point. It's 1 point to go. It was Illinois up 1 with 24 seconds to go in Champaign.
There you go. All right. So really tight one there in Illinois. And that definitely would have an impact, because if I remember, Jeff, if Nebraska wins that, they would jump to the number 4 seed. Right. And if not, I think they stay at number 5.
Yep.
So that definitely has a big implication there for Nebraska. Michigan State went into Wisconsin today and won 78-52. And then later this evening, Purdue will go to Michigan. Again, Purdue wins that game. I believe that they get a single game bye and would be playing Thursday and not have to play the Wednesday game. So definitely some implications of what's going on today.
Absolutely. And again, if you're Purdue, you want to be off that first day. If again, as a non-Purdue fan, hope they are playing the first day. But there is some impact there, Kathy, because if Michigan wins, they can jump up into that 6th seed, and we would play them possibly on Friday night. Friday they would move past Penn State because they got the tiebreaker on Penn State.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So as of right this very second, as I mentioned, Ohio State, we already talked about them. They clinched earlier this year and were the outright winners. Iowa's number 2, Indiana's number 3, finished 3rd. And then again, obviously with those games going on, Michigan State right now is sitting 4th, and Nebraska is right behind them at 5th, Penn State at 6th, Maryland at 7. Both of them are 9-9, and then you have Michigan right there as well at 8-9. So again, pretty big implications here going on with a couple of the ongoing games right now, as well as the Purdue game tonight in terms of standings. Jeff, any other thoughts on the Big Ten or the upcoming Big Ten tournament? Again, we'll be playing that very last game late on Friday night. But any other thoughts going into the tournament? Like, who would you not want to see a space? Is there like one particular team, like take out Ohio State and Iowa, but any of those other lower seeds below us? Is there one in particular you really hope we weren't going to be facing potentially?
Well, since it wouldn't be to the championship game, I wouldn't mind as much, but I would like I do like Michigan State being on that opposite side. Michigan State's going to be either the 4 or the 5 seed. So they're opposite of Indiana. The only way IU is going to see them is if we get to the Big Ten tournament championship. So I'm okay with that. As of the other teams, no, there's not. But again, some of this depends on overall health, but let's assume Mac's healthy. Nothing, she won't be, limited or anything. So no, there's nobody really on that other side. I will add this in, Kathy, real quick, because I did pay attention to this earlier in the day. Excuse me. Rutgers and Northwestern were battling basically for that 13-14 spot, and Northwestern won that game. So Northwestern will be the 13 seed, and Rutgers will be the 14 seed. But realistically, everything from about 6 to 12 is still up for grabs right now, depending upon what Michigan and Purdue do. So that there's some things to happen with that game tonight will really affect seeding.
Yeah, and hot off the presses, Illinois did win that game by 11, so it looks like Nebraska will probably stay then. I think at that number 5 seed, right?
They're 5.
Yeah, that's right. How about Illinois, Jeff? You mentioned Michigan State. I totally agree with you. That would be a team I don't think I want to be facing at all in the Big Ten tournament. If we can avoid seeing them, that would be great. But how about your thoughts on Illinois? Like, I know we beat them earlier this year, but then they beat us pretty handily. And I know that was a home game for them. But any concerns if we would somehow end up facing Illinois somewhere along the route?
Well, trying to crunch the numbers here real quick, Kathy. I think we're in the same boat. I think they're going to be over on the other side. So again, not a team I necessarily want to see, but even with the tiebreaker, I think I'd have to dig into a little bit more, but even the best they could do, I think, is flip flop with Michigan. If Michigan loses tonight, I think the best they could do. So basically Michigan and them in that 8-9 game, either way, it looks like coming up here. So, well, I shouldn't say either way, but if Michigan loses, that's the 8-9 game.
Yeah, either way, it probably is going to look right now, potentially Illinois and Michigan. So, yeah, it looks pretty highly unlikely we would face them. How about what it looks like on our current side of the bracket? Yeah, so on our side of the bracket, as of right now, I think it's Wisconsin, Maryland, Rutgers or Purdue, and then Penn State would be on our side of the bracket, and Iowa in that number 2 slot.
If Penn State had been playing better, like they were middle of the season, I wouldn't maybe want a whole lot of them, but they've struggled. Now, Minnesota's just right now down. Marlow Braun's injury has really dragged them down. And it was senior day at Penn State today. And I think Penn State came out, was playing, McKenna Marissa was having her final home game. Ashley Owuzu was having her final home game. So, again, some emotions in there. But I like our side of the draw, and I think we're all anticipating that hopefully a rematch with Iowa on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what we're anticipating as well. I don't mind any of those teams again right now. Purdue or Minnesota might be that number 11. I don't see Rutgers winning that first game. And then Penn State would be the opponent in the next game. And I would expect, whether it's Purdue or Minnesota, that Penn State would win that. So that's kind of like if I'm filling out a bracket on the Big Ten side, our Big Ten tournament, I would expect we will be meeting Penn State for our first game, and then hopefully we'll take care of business there, and then we'll probably end up facing Iowa on Saturday for that semi final. Any other thoughts or things you're looking for in the Big Ten tournament? I know we don't know obviously our specific opponents, so we can't really go into that kind of detail, but is there anything in particular other than Lily's and Mackenzie's health, I should say, that's some obvious other things you're looking for?
I'll be interested in the crowd and just to see how much of it is a pro Iowa crowd as opposed to a pro women's basketball crowd. Because obviously a lot of this sellout is being driven by Iowa and Caitlin Clark. But, and again, I know they lost today, but Ohio State's really good. Indiana's really good. Michigan State is very dangerous. Nebraska may not. Right now, to me, Kathy, I look at the bracket the way it is, and I kind of look at chalk right here. I really think those top 4 seeds should advance to Saturday. I know about the time I say that, there's going to be an upset because it wouldn't be a Big Ten tournament or NCAA tournament without somebody, upsetting the bracket. But I just think especially those 3 teams, that the top 3 separated themselves pretty much all season long. And by the end of the year, Michigan State and Nebraska had separated themselves from the rest of the pack. So I just think that Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana. And could Nebraska beat Michigan State? Possibly, but I think you're going to see 4 of those top 5 seeds in the semis on Saturday.
Yeah, I think so too. I would fully expect, and I could see maybe Nebraska going in and pulling a quote unquote upset. You don't know with them either where they're going to finish off. So that's the interesting thing. Once you get kind of below the top three, really, and Michigan State's, I think they've been playing pretty well. So I would expect them to make it to their Saturday game as well. But some of these teams down below, especially in that middle pack, there's a reason why they're all bunched up, right? Like they have such, they've played sometimes really, really fantastic, like we saw with Illinois beating us the one time, and we've had some upsets along the way here and there with others. So to me, I think it's just really hard to know who's going to make it, but I would expect, same as you, it'd be probably those top four or potentially Nebraska going in and knocking off Michigan State if they get on a roll.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jeff, with that, let's talk about our final thoughts of this game and how we are kind of moving into our postseason play.
Yeah, and Kathy, I'll just two things here. Obviously, we want to know a little bit more, and I know they're not going to say anything. The IU coaching staff and administration, as far as athletic administration, can be very tight-lipped about any injuries. But from what we saw at the end of the game, I think Mackenzie looked like she was moving around. There wasn't a noticeable limp from people that were at the game. Ari texted us and said that it looked like she was moving fine. Now Lily was limping a little bit and stuff, but again, with an ankle sprain, that's kind of to be expected.
Exactly.
So the final thoughts here for me, just get everybody healthy, as hopefully nobody's badly injured. Get everybody healthy. You've got some days off here. You're not going to play till Friday. I would assume they get tomorrow off probably anyway, but they will have to travel. Obviously, you're going to Minneapolis for the tournament. But at this, and next week's a little bit different because, again, if you lose, you're going to turn around and play in the NCAA tournament. But we're getting to that time of year, Kathy, where it really does become one and done. Every game basically is a one and done type scenario. So if you want to win the Big Ten tournament, it's a one and done scenario. So you got to just be 1-0 at the end of every day. And that's what your focus has to be.
Yeah. So unofficial reports coming in the chat here is that Lily has said that it looked worse than it was and that she'll be fine, but that she might miss a game out of precaution. So another comment that was put into the chat here, Jeff, it was that someone suggested maybe we quietly tank the Big Ten tournament. What are your thoughts on it? So I'll give you mine, and then you tell me if you agree or disagree with me. But I don't think you do that. And why? Because you still have things riding on these games, right? Like if you lose that game to whoever it is in that first game, let's say it's Penn State, I don't necessarily know that it drops you off of the 4 seed with just one game, but I don't think you want to risk that either. And then on the other side of it, if they could manage to go ahead and win their first game, beat Iowa again, and even make it to the championship, and, heck, if they win that championship, A, you just hung another banner, and B, I think you could move up to a 3 seed. And I think there's still seeding implications, not to mention, your chance of winning another conference title. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think at this point, a loss on Friday night drops you to a 5. I mean, obviously other things have to go on. Other things are going on around you, like what's happening with teams in that line, that 4-5, 3-4-5 line as well. But you don't want to run that risk. If you were a 3 seed, maybe. If you were a 2 seed, yeah, maybe. Because especially if Mac is like, you know what, not 100% this week, but I'll be 100% by the following week, then yeah, maybe. If that's the case, just don't play her and go. But if you were 2 or 3 seed, I also think there's value in winning. And again, I say this both as a coach and a fan. I think if you're building a program that's supposed to be about winning and going out and playing your best every day, then the idea that you're not going to play your best on a day or that you're going to kind of hold back, I don't think sends the message you want to send to the team in your program. I think you've told kids all along that we're here to build a winner. And winning sometimes means you have to find ways to win when you aren't at your best or when you're not 100%. So that's the only reason I don't like that. If I knew they were going to get a protected seed, no matter what, if they lost on Friday, maybe slightly, we're talking like 20% less that I'd do it, but you don't have that guarantee right now.
That's right. And I think there's something to be said about momentum and confidence going into the NCAA tournament as well. And if, you can, do
Exactly.
the unexpected and win the entire tournament, I think that gives the team a lot of great momentum and a lot of great confidence. But yeah, the question maybe is around the injuries, but like you said, maybe you don't play Mackenzie as much, or Lily can't play, or something along those lines, and you do that out of more precautionary for injury's sake going into the NCAA tournament. But I still don't know that I would. If they're able to go, I think they're going to go, especially being Mackenzie's last year. So, okay, so I diverged us. So my final thoughts, Jeff, are this was just another great season overall. And I know after postseason play, we'll do a wrap up of the season and how it went and things that we went. But we only lost 4 games this year, and if you look at 3 of those 4 losses, they were to top 6 teams in the nation, right? You had Stanford, Iowa, and Ohio State,
or 7 if you look at the bracket reveal.
Right, exactly. So at a minimum, top 7, depending on what you're using. And I could see Iowa moving up after their win today over Ohio State too. So and then we turn around and beat Iowa when we got to play them again. And so overall, did we win the our conference title again? No. Did we expect to? Not really. But was it a great season? 100%. And I think today was just a perfect Sunday, or cherry on that Sunday as well for the season. A 54-71 win to take out some of our seniors. I think it's just a great way to end the season, and really looking forward to starting conference play here, or a Big Ten tournament play here.
And Kathy, real quick, I think if we go back and look at the preview show where we predicted what we would do in the Big Ten, I think we both called it. I think we were all the line that Ohio State was the best team on paper, and if they stayed healthy, they were probably the best team in the league. They stayed healthy. Right. They won the league. And then we said it was going to come down to Iowa and Indiana for that 2nd and 3rd spot. And it was going to be very dependent upon how each team played against each other. And then what could they do against an Ohio State? And at that time, we kind of thought maybe Illinois was going to be in the mix. But I think we go back to the preview show. We nailed the top 3. The top 3 in the league separated themselves, and we had them. And I think both of us had it as Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana, and we were right there.
That's right. Yeah. And, in terms of record, I had predicted a 14-4 Big Ten record. I just grabbed my sheet where I had written down my predictions. And so they were actually 1 game better. I thought that they were going to drop both of those games to Iowa, and they didn't. So I thought there was potential for them to lose another one on the road somewhere, and they didn't do that either. And so they definitely played to my expectations, if not better, or right at it. So overall, again, just a really fantastic season. So I think that's a great way to wrap it up. All right. So in terms of what's coming up next for us on the show, Jeff and I will be doing a show live right after the game on Friday. Again, that's the Big Ten tournament game. We don't know when, but it sounds like we might be tipping around 8 Central or 9 Eastern. So it will definitely be a late Friday night. So hopefully you'll all be able to stay up and watch the women play, and then come join us afterwards to discuss the show. Assembly Call Radio went live earlier, right before us, with the men's win over Maryland as well today. But they will be back again on Wednesday. The men play Minnesota. That tip time is around 9 Eastern or 8 Central. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of our live chat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@BlackHomeNetwork. You can be part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. A special thanks to John Ringer of Riggs Design for designing our logos. A big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music that you heard throughout the broadcast. And most of all, thank you all for listening and being with us here today, or listening afterwards. We appreciate you very much. And we will be back to talk hoops with you again on Friday night. But until then, keep your elbows in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers. All right, cool. Well, that was a good way to end our regular season for sure. That was fun.
Yes, it was. I'm trying to say,
Oh,
see something. My nephew had texted me and said that Mackenzie jogged over to shake hands with Maryland. So, cause he was at the game today. So I think we're getting
nice.
better news, but it's just a matter of, again, how much, like, especially for Lily, probably more of that ankle and high ankle, how much, can you handle? How much does it swell? And it's amazing, Kathy. You've been around for a while in terms of watching these things with your son and stuff. Where we would have been like 30, 40 years ago, they would have been putting my foot in a bucket of ice, and now they've got all kinds of technology and things to keep that swelling as minimal as possible. So it's just amazing what they can do over on that side, on the physical therapy side of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Physical therapy and, rehab and everything has just come a long way for sure. So, feeling pretty positive about it. So that's good.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, anything else last minute on your mind?
No, good to see you back. And
Yes.
first, I was going to joke with you at the beginning. I forgot about it. It was like, I almost didn't recognize you because I hadn't seen you for a while.
I know I felt like I was gone forever too. I missed 2 shows back to back, one expected, one unexpected. So trust me, I would have much rather been on the show with you on Thursday night too. I hardly even worked on Friday either. So
I understand.
it's not going to be any help to you. You did a great job, by the way. So.
Thank you. But no, I haven't got anything. I got to get some things done around here for tomorrow.
Same.
So I'll let you go as well.
All right. We'll see you
talk Friday. Yep.
All right.
Bye,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.